Hello, homeschooling families. This is Janet here at Cabinet Homeschool Resource Center. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start for the day. And I have a huge treat for you guys. If you don't recognize this wonderful person here, this is Colene Lewis. Thank you so much for being with us, Colene.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
So I don't know if you remember, but when you used to be, you and your husband, Tom, were the presidents of AFI. I went to some of the leadership meetings because my children were little at the time, and I was part of a homeschooling group with actually Chris Carnes, who works here at the Cabinet also.
Yes.
And it was very nice. So you and Tom were part of the AFI board for about 15 years.
Yes.
And a lot of those years, you guys were the presidents.
Yes.
And then after, you have three daughters, right?
We do have three daughters.
Mm-hmm. And all of them homeschooled, you homeschooled them, I should say, right?
I homeschooled them. Actually, the oldest went to Christian school for a year and a half, and then I pulled her out of first grade and started the homeschooling adventure.
Oh, wow. Was that a hard transition?
You know what, it's interesting. I actually met homeschoolers when she was in the nursery, which is 39 years ago. Can you believe that? And I met homeschoolers because they wouldn't let me take my baby into church, and so I ended up working in the nursery with the other crazy homeschool mom that didn't want to be away from her mother or her children. And so she told me about homeschooling, and I read Dr. Moore, and so this was in 1980, and I thought, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then I had one child, and then a year and a half later I had number two, and then I was pregnant with number three, and I said, yeah, homeschooling, that looks good, but I'm overwhelmed. And so I found the local Christian school and put them in school. And so she was in kindergarten, was wonderful. And then first grade, we had problems, and which I don't need to go into, but there were just issues. And so I ended up remembering about homeschooling, and I had a couple of friends that were homeschooling. And so this is, mid 1980s. And I said, I'm just going to pull her out and teach her how to read. So pull her out for a semester, teach her how to read, and then put her back in the Christian school. And I found out I loved having her home. And so we just kept going from then on.
So it's so funny because I'm from Peru originally. So my mother's American, so I did learn English while I grew up there. But I got married young, and my first child was born when I was 20. And by the time she was ready to go to school, I was like, I did my senior year of high school here, and it wasn't a wonderful experience. And I was like, if I send my kid to school, they're going to be with their friends all day long. And I was picturing the high school years, and they're going to be at school till 3 p.m. and then they'll come home tired. And then just like I did, they'll want to go hang with their friends. And then they'll be with me like 2 hours. And how I'm supposed to teach them the values that I wanted to. But I thought that's just how it was. So I just had this constant worry, but my kids were going to go to school because that's what you do. But I met some friends when my daughter was 4 years old that were homeschooling. And I asked them a question, and it made whatever she answered made zero sense to my Peruvian half English brain. But then I heard whoever was the president of AFI, and it was 1994. And it wasn't you guys. It was actually a bald guy. I forgot what his name was. You guys were not in 1994, right? Presidents.
I thought we were.
You were? Okay, well, he was a representative, not the president. So and I just confused him.
Sounds like Joel Bueller.
That might have been him. And I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And we went to the homeschool convention with our friends, and the rest is history. And my daughter was 4 at the time.
Wow.
And that was the last year that they did the conference at the church in Tempe, Grace.
Yes,
something.
Grace Community.
Grace Community. That was the last year Grace Community hosted.
Wow.
I know. So isn't it cool how God works things out? Yeah. Because I had no clue I was going to homeschool. Oh, and then to teach your child to read, I didn't even know what a short vowel was, what a long vowel was. And I'm like, how am I supposed to teach them? And you remember Tammy Lopez?
Yes.
Tammy Lopez is huge in the homeschool community. She's had kids my kids' age. And actually Tammy and Chris and I are reconnecting, and we have some really cool stuff planned for you homeschoolers. So Tammy's plugging in again. Just wait for future Facebook Lives. Anyway, so Tammy helped me relax then the next year when my daughter was 5, and I was so horribly stressed. She saw me walking out of the convention hall, And I have no idea what my face looked like. And she just approached me, "Are you okay?" That's how horrible I looked. I was so stressed.
Well, I remember when I first started and I bought a curriculum to teach Heather how to read because she was she wasn't learning well in school. They were using a sight reading and it just wasn't working. And I bought it and I remember going, I had never really learned spelling rules. And I went, oh, there's reasons why we spell the way we spell. And one of the benefits of homeschooling is that as a mother, you learn. You're going to learn right along with them. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't know this stuff. Oh, you learn right before. And I actually found some of the subjects, like I was really good at math. And I didn't have as much patience with my children teaching them math. But teaching them spelling and grammar, which I just sort of did it how it felt right. I just sort of spelled, I sort of put in punctuation, sort of feels like maybe a comma should be in there. I didn't understand any of the rules. So I was actually more patient teaching them. And it was sort of fun learning. And I've had people say, you are so smart. And I said, well, that's because I've taught myself right before I was teaching my girls.
Absolutely. So in my case, American history, I knew very little. My mom was born on July 3rd, so she likes the patriotic songs, but I knew so little when I came because I learned Peruvian history and whatever we do for world history, but American history. So it was amazing to me to learn about this country and the foundations, and the reason why America is amazing as it is because of how it got started, basically. It is just, I just loved learning all that. So it's really cool.
That is really cool.
Okay, so you homeschooled your 3 daughters all the way through, except the
first year.
The first year. And then you were on the AFI board for about 15 years. And then you started working for the Alliance defending, what is it called? Alliance Defending Freedom.
When my youngest was going, we do community college in high school. I homeschool. I especially homeschool a lot of the literature, the history, the worldview I want to talk about, but I don't really want to do Spanish on a level. How do you do that in the home? That's hard. Now you could because you're a native, but for most of us, chemistry, I didn't want to do chemistry. And so I ended up using a lot of community college. And then my youngest is our engineer. And so she was doing, after 3 years of homeschool math, I said, yeah, I'm not doing calculus. You can go to the community college. And so she was doing a lot of community college for her sciences and her math and her foreign language. And so I had less to do. And my husband said, you're high energy and you need something else to do when you finish homeschooling. Or you're going to drive our kids to wrath by being too involved in their adult lives, which was totally right. I have such a good husband. And so I went and started working at Alliance Defending Freedom, and I worked with the law students, which was so much fun because I always felt like homeschoolers, they are world changers. And then I moved from working with those kind of world changers to working with these young Christian lawyers who are going to change the world and already are starting change the world. But I never got all my fingers out of homeschooling. I still always came to the convention and I would help. We passed on the leadership to fabulous people who have just taken it further than we even imagined, which we're very proud of what they've done. But we've been here helping. And so in fact, Tom, when they lost their legislative person, Tom had just retired from SRP and they asked him, so he's back doing has been doing legislative stuff for AFI the last couple of years.
So it just so happens that in 2008, you were the keynote speaker for the graduation, the AFI homeschool graduation. And I actually am going to get up because I misplaced something. Oops, sorry, guys.
Oh, my goodness.
But I have to show you. Here it is. Look at this.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
Look at that.
Oh, my gosh.
I have to show you guys that.
This is so neat.
So this is my daughter, Mr. Monk. Mr. Monk was the president at the time.
Yes, he was president at the time.
He's not the president anymore, is he?
No.
But they're still involved, correct?
They're still involved, but not on the board.
So I have both of my kids have their pictures with Mr. Monk.
Oh, that is so cool.
And then Colene is right there, and that's my oldest daughter when she graduated. So I'm gonna have to get your autograph.
Oh, this is so neat. That was fun. That was fun.
That's why, sorry guys, I had to get up. I had it right. I thought I had it together, but I just accidentally separated the picture. So I had to surprise you with that. So that was a really exciting time. That was my first child graduating from homeschool. And it was just, so thank you so much for being part of that. And So your husband also just came to visit us about a month ago.
Yes.
And we just so happened to have, it was February, so we have a display book, section just outside of our mini bookstore, and we had all our Black history books out, at least a lot of them.
Yes.
So he mentioned to us that you have written a really nice selection, compiled a selection of literature that is based on Black history, correct?
I have. And how it started is that I love books.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways I bless my children and my grandchildren is I go to the library and I read tons of books. And then I recommend the best ones because the busy homeschool moms don't have time to do this. Unless they're sort of crazy and like to read children's books. And so we had been doing the Civil War. And I had collected, and I love picture books because I think picture books are great, even if your kids are older, even if you have kids that are reading chapter books. Chapter books are great, read chapter books, but don't ignore the picture books, even if your children are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Yes. That's one of the blessings with homeschooling is maybe in school, a 13, 14-year-old, 12, 11, maybe even wouldn't want to read a picture book, but in homeschool they will. And they are so beautiful. And so I had found some really fabulous books on the Civil War, especially about the Underground Railroad, that kind of stuff. And my daughter said, these are so beautiful. Mom, you should take these and compile them into a list of books for Black History Month, because I was looking for a list like that was from more of a Christian perspective. So I did. So I came up and I read so many books, and there are so many really good books out there. That my unique take on it is I wanted books that showed redemption and reconciliation, because I think sometimes when we're dealing with race issues, what we don't want is we don't want our kids to be angry. We don't want them to be, we want to bring them to a place of racial reconciliation. Isn't that what we want?
Absolutely.
So, and I found fabulous books starting all the way from mostly American history books. There's a few that are more global, but mostly American history books, and not just the Civil War, though there's some fabulous ones. Gloria Whelan, there's some authors that are just fabulous, like Gloria Whelan, Patricia Polacco, that their books are just fabulous. But there's just these wonderful books. I think my favorite one was about a little girl who, and then I've drawn a blank on her name. Ruby, thank you. That is probably my favorite of all of them. And I don't know if you've read it, but this rendition that I talk about in the blog, it tells about her story. She was the little girl that went to they desegregated the schools, and so she had to have the police or the National Guard help her go in, and the people in the community were so unhappy that they didn't have their children go, and so she had one-on-one with her teacher, and who ended up being a white woman, and this is a little Black girl in the South, far in the South, and the teacher would watch, and she would walk through, and it tells her story and her parents, and she would walk through, and most of the time she would just walk through, and one time she stopped, and there were adults that were yelling at this child because they didn't want her in the school, and they were yelling at her, and she stopped, and she said something, and the teacher couldn't, of course, was watching from a window, and so when Ruby came in, she said, "What did you do? What were you saying?" And Ruby said, "Well, usually a couple blocks back, I stop and I pray for them, and I pray that God will forgive them, and I pray the prayer that Jesus prayed on the cross, that God would forgive them because they don't know what they're doing." And she said, "I forgot to pray today." And then when this woman started yelling at me, I stopped and I prayed for them.
Oh, she prayed for them. Oh my gosh, when they're screaming, she was so little.
And just a little girl. Well, that is the kind of book that I want my children
reading.
And I want them going, yes, I want to reconcile. I want to see this situation redeemed. I want to be like Ruby. And so those are the kind of books. I mean, that one, I read it, I cried.
I would cry
I read
too.
it to my husband and cried. And then I went on Amazon and bought it because I wanted my own copy. The library wasn't enough for me. I wanted my own copy. But I wanted books, and don't we want to give our children these kind of books that will inspire racial reconciliation?
Absolutely. So I have to mention, I don't know, do you know that we have, Arizona had a segregated school in the 60s? And it's here downtown. It's just south of
I know that.
it's not called the Bank One Ballpark. What is it called now? Anyway, whatever the heck the new ballpark name is. It is just south of the ballpark, and that it actually closed before the Supreme Court decided that segregation was bad. So it was the only and the first segregated school. So it is on your 7th Street in Grand or somewhere around there. Oh, Lincoln, I think that's what the street is. But anyway, so currently it is called George Carver Museum and Cultural Center. So my kids are 29 and 25 now. And we went, well, they were still little kids. We went about 3 or 4 times. And the people that give you the tour are actually graduates from that school. And it is really neat. So
Whoa,
it is amazing.
I've never heard this.
Yes, and it's so funny because we went, the first time that we went, shortly after we went to the hair salon to get my daughter's hair relaxed. And the lady that relaxed her hair, her name was Velma. So we always, oh, Velma, we just went to this great museum. And guess what she told us? She told us, my husband went to that school. Isn't that amazing? So it still is going on. I don't know if the graduates are still giving the tours, because they're getting older. But I bet some of them are giving the tours. And last time, I always tell people when they come in and they're interested in Black history, I'm like, you need to go there. You need to go there, because soon enough they won't be alive, or they'll be too old to tell the tours. And so it's that Phoenix Suns has partnered with them, so they fixed it up really nicely, and it's a beautiful building. And it may not seem like much, but when you talk to those people that live there and they tell you their stories, and like the most wonderful thing, I remember this little old lady grandma, and she's all really sweet, really happy. She's sharing with us how they couldn't find teachers because white people couldn't teach. So they got teachers from the South that were very highly educated. So they got an amazing education. And she was very, very proud about that. And then my daughter, my oldest one, is an athlete. She played basketball. And so then the lady brings the yearbooks, and they have them all over the place there. And she shows them, this is me playing basketball. Oh my gosh, they had to wear long sleeve and skirts all the way below the knees while they play basketball. So we're like, oh wow. So you get all this historical stuff and obviously the personal story of them. It is an amazing place. So I would recommend, last time I went to the website, George Carver Museum and Cultural Center, Mackenzie's typing in website, so she'll probably put in the comments. So make sure you guys go there. It is an amazing place. And the other thing that they have, which I do cry sometimes, that they have traveling exhibits. So some of the things they show, nothing is gory, but it's obviously historical. And you're like, oh, I can't believe we humans did that. It makes you feel like crying. It's like some of the things that they show there. But it is an amazing place. So I don't know what they're having in the traveling section, but no matter what, just to talk to the real graduates from that school.
And I would suggest before you go on a field trip like that you have your children read some books and you talk to them before, so they're actually prepared. And I don't know if they've added into the notes, but my list of, I think it's 40 books, is on cultivatedlearning.org. And you can go get that. And there's other lists, but I would prepare your children for that, because that sounds so impactful.
It was. And the other nice, interesting thing, it was so funny, you never know what you're going to learn. One of the homeschooling families in our group, so there's a little section about cotton, and they show how a lot of black people came in the train to pick cotton here in Arizona. And it so happened that the one family that I was just mentioning, her son's grandparents came to Arizona exclusively to pick cotton, and that's how the family got settled here. So it's just really, really neat to hear all those connections. Yes. And I didn't even know that Arizona was a cotton picking or a place that grew cotton that well. So you just learn so many things.
That's fabulous.
It's an amazing place. I highly, highly recommend it.
Great.
And yes, and prepared, absolutely. So let me show you guys, since we just talked about the list, there's something else really cool that Colene and her daughter Heather Hopp, did I pronounce it right?
Yes.
Good, have written. And this is a curriculum. It's called Go Global. And it's a curriculum for children more or less 5 to 8?
5 to 8.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. Why do you guys decided to write this?
We are so excited about this. This is our baby. And Heather and I both speak at a lot of conferences. We speak in Arizona every year. We'll be there again this year, both of us. And we've spoken at other conferences. And we talk about our philosophy, which we think children learn best by using real books. Rather than textbooks. Not that you can't use textbooks. Textbooks are fine, and they can give you a good overview. But to really capture the heart of a child, you want to use real books, like the kind of books that I was talking about with Black History, or books like The Blue Whale. I mean, don't your kids want to read this? It's fun stuff. So we believe in using real books, and if you use them from the library, they're free. If you take them back on time. And then we also believe that children learn best by moving, especially little children. And the movement thing is really Heather's Ballywig. She was ADHD. In fact, I'm so proud of this, is that when I pulled her out of school, that was part of the issues, is she couldn't sit still. And they weren't mean to her. They were good teachers. There was a good school, but they put her in the back so she wouldn't cause anybody to distract anybody else. Yeah. And so they weren't trying to be mean to her, but you put an ADHD kid in the back row, they learn nothing. So, but here's the funny thing is that she told me after she was married, she called me up and she goes, I just read an article about adult ADHD and I have like 100% of those traits. And I said, yes. And I said, well, that's probably not surprising because you had it when you were a kid. And she goes, I did? You never told me. And I never told her. And that was one of the blessings for us in homeschooling her. Now, my other kids don't have that issue, but for her, she needed to move. And so movement is something she studied it in college under her biology. So movement's really important to her. So we would talk, when we were talking to families in our workshops, we would say, use real books. And then Heather especially, but even me too, is we'd say, move with your kids. Don't just have them sit at a desk and fill in workbooks. And that's one of the blessings of homeschooling, is like, I feel sorry for teachers. I mean, there's only a certain amount of chaos that you can have with 25 or 30 kids. So, but when it's just you and yours, you can get them up and move some stuff.
Absolutely.
So when we had people that were saying, well, we love your philosophy, but could you just write down what you do and sell it to us? And so now, that takes a lot of time. This has taken us a couple of years to put together in a written form so that people can understand it. But that's what we've done. And it's Go Global. Heather and I both separately, which is sort of funny, but when we both started homeschooling our kids, we realized that little kids, how do you even start if they don't understand where they are in the globe? How do you talk about, well, the Pilgrims came over, or Columbus came over, or, this is happening here or there, if they don't understand the here? And so we wanted this, we started it with, you're getting a big picture of the globe. You're getting a big picture of the world. And you're learning that there's the continents and the oceans. And so that was our concept, is that we want to lay that level first. And then we build from that, because then you can go back and you can study history, and oh, I know where that is. Ancient Egypt. Oh yeah, Egypt. We studied that in a general way when we studied Africa. So that was our goal with this baby, and we're very excited. This is, you can sort of see here, this is not for resale. This is our first or our last copy, just to try to check and make sure that we're getting all the little errors out, and the formatting, making sure the formatting is correct. But it's going to be out this spring.
Oh, we're so excited. So I've already asked Colene, as soon as it's out, please send us a copy.
You will be getting a copy or two. So
yes, so people can come and look at it here, and then we'll figure out how that proceeds. So this is also a very literature heavy book. I mean, curriculum, correct?
It's very literature heavy, because again, I just really love using real books. And so now we have, one of the things that this kind of learning is difficult for moms is that it's too open-ended. And now some people really like the open-ended, but there's a lot of moms out there that are going, you gave me a list of 20 books, which do I buy? And so, or which do I get out of the library? And so we made it real specific. And so we say, get a couple books. In fact, I even brought a couple books just to sort of show you the kind of books. We suggest this book is a spine book, and it's just this beautiful. It's National Geographic. It's just gorgeous. You can get it from your library, but you also could purchase it if you want to. Not for me. I don't sell books, but Amazon. Free shipping. And it's just this beautiful book that is the kind of book that a child wants to read.
Yes.
It's just that this is going to be fascinating. It's got great maps, and you use this the whole year long. We use this book, but this is the kind of books that children would just love. In fact, in the curriculum, sometimes I would say, "Oh, they need to know." Like when we did Canada, I said, "Oh, what do they need to know about Canada?" And I thought, well, there's going to be hockey. There's going to be the Canadian Mounties, and I went and I remember thinking, oh, this is great. It's in the book. So I could just say, turn to page this and find the picture about the Canadian Mounties, and how we make this hands-on is actually, I'll do the hockey, right? Ice hockey. How we made it hands-on is I said, we talked to them about hockey and how that's important. And if you're not a hockey family, I'm not a hockey family. I mean, we're in Arizona. Yeah. But I said, what we do is that we put them in clean socks and a spray bottle and spray your kitchen floor and let them play hockey and sort of clean your floor at the same time and use a clean. We even said, if you can give them a stick that won't hurt your floor, and maybe a pool noodle, because that won't hurt your floor, and a clean plastic lid, like from a peanut butter jar, and let them play hockey. And so do you see that is fun? And actually that's something that you could talk about with your kids, and then you can say, okay, we're going to play hockey now. Get on clean socks. Here's a pool noodle, and I'm going to go put in the laundry, because the laundry needs to get switched over. But it's full of things like that, which are activities that are movement rich, but also content rich.
Absolutely.
But books, I love books. Another book that we used, I brought a few. And most of these, again, are available in your library. This is a new author, Jenny Desmond. She's a young woman, younger than us, and she's writing just beautiful books. And this is one of the spine books for the week that you do oceans. And it is just, I can actually open this up just anywhere, and it's just got great. This is that one's hard to explain, but it's just got these great pictures and stories about the whale that is just fabulous. There's about his eye, and all children love to read. I love this one. It talks about how many people could fit inside the whale's mouth. Is that a hoot?
And you know what I also love about this? The kids, there's a lot of room for the kids to imagine different things and to imagine themselves in the story too.
Yes, and it's the kind of thing that you could actually read it to your kids, and then they could go, they'll go pull it out later and read it themselves. And this book is in all good libraries. So again, most of the books we're trying to do are in good libraries. One of the things also I was telling you earlier that I would love to tell, sometimes we need to be really careful as you're looking at books, even lists of books. Did the person actually read the books, or are they just sort of recommending them? And I spent a year of my life just combing through library books and reading, so that I could find the best. And I'm recommending the best. And I'm recommending ones that don't have issues, if you know what I mean. And what I'm looking for is, I was looking for books that had great illustrations, that had interesting content, that had good content for the children, because I think and again, finding friends, finding a librarian. I had a librarian at the Tempe Public Library when my kids were young, and she knew me and I knew her, and I could even just take, especially chapter books that are really hard to read all of them, and I would just say, what do you think about this book? And sometimes she would say, not for your family, because she knew me.
Exactly.
And sometimes she'd say, oh yeah, that's really good. Sometimes she'd say, well, there is this one little issue. And can I tell you a story about one book I found when we were doing the Andes, when we were doing South America, where you're from, and it's a fabulous book. I think it's called Up and Down the Andes by Lori Krebs.
Okay, I haven't read that one.
And it's a beautiful book. It's lyrical. It's got lovely pictures. It's got a story arc, which kids love a story arc. So there's a narrative. There's a story that's happening. And it's a story about a bunch of kids getting on a bus, and they're going up the Andes to one of the cities. And now here's the difficult part. It's the festival of the sun god.
Oh, they're going to Cusco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm going, I love this book, but it's got the sun god. So how am I going to deal with this? And so, I was thinking, well, as a parent, how I would deal with it is I would read the book because the book is fabulous. It's just fabulous. But then I would say, there's some people that actually worshiped the sun, S-U-N. Well, and we have Christians, we have people called missionaries that go and share the truth of the S-O-N of God. And they tell them about Jesus and how you can worship Jesus rather than the creation. You can worship the Creator. So I still use that book.
Yes.
But I would make sure, but in the curriculum, I made sure to say, warning, parents, if you're not comfortable with it, don't get the book. But because you can still do the curriculum without that book, but you can get other books. But I actually think the book is so good, and you could use it as to have one of these wonderful conversations with your kids. And that's the blessing of using these kind of books, is you actually can have those conversations.
Absolutely. And I have to say, this is going to be a little bunny trail. But so I grew up in Peru, so obviously I learned all that history. There was something that either I didn't put it together or I just didn't learn it. And I just learned it 2 years ago. And I'll tell you guys what it is, because it's in relation to what you were just talking about, the sun god. So we went, my family came back to the USA. My mother's American and my father's Peruvian. So the 80s were very bad, and especially Peru. So the family decided to move to the USA in 87. So for the first time ever, in 2016, we all went back together. We've gone at different times, but so we went to one of my cousin's weddings, and we made it a huge family touring. We went to Cusco, Machu Picchu. Sacsayhuamán is where they do the main ceremony of the sun god. But what I learned, we were in the Temple of the Sun, and the tour guide said something like, yeah, everybody thinks they are, oh my gosh, not mono, what's the opposite of mono? Polytheistic. Sorry about that. I had a little mental block. Okay. So there's the sun god, the moon, but were they really polytheistic? And then he shows this design, which actually I'll have Mackenzie put it in. I'll put it in at some point. This picture, and there's a lot of people around. And because we went in the busy season, because that's when he got married, my cousin. But anyway, so there were so many people, and the guy says, but were they really? Because look at this. This is a symbolic representation of the Inca religion. And look, there's a reference to Viracocha, which is the one true God. And I was like, wow. What? I was like, what? I never learned that. And we just got distracted. And we got a book. And then I came back, and we had this little Peruvian cultural party. So I had to learn, because I was getting a little presentation about Peru. It turns out that there was an Inca, and he had a dream, that Inca's Pachacutec. He had a dream from the one true God, Viracocha. And and the one true God told him that he was gonna have control over the whole, the whole land from the top of the South America all the way to Chile. He was gonna have, that's how big his empire was gonna be. And it came from Viracocha. So he decided to build the temple to worship Viracocha, which is the one true God. And then the sun and the moon are the minor gods underneath the one true God. And it was so interesting. Oh, and the one true God was called the Creator God. And that is fascinating. It is so fascinating. I was like, how come I probably wasn't interested. When you're a kid, you don't pay attention about stuff. But I was so impressed. It was like, oh, even God makes sure to show himself, even if there was no Bible, no missionaries, no nothing.
Yes. Yes.
It was really amazing.
That is so neat. And that's one thing too. So I wanted to be very respectful of all peoples as we were studying the world, because I want my children to be respectful of all people. And even if we disagree with them, we want to be respectful.
Absolutely.
So that is so cool, though. It makes me think of the, on Mars Hill, where he found where Paul found the one.
Oh, yes.
That is
neat. So when you're homeschooling, that's what you learn. You're not going to learn everything, but all of a sudden, these little tidbits pop up, and you're learning amazing things, and your kids are too.
Yes,
it's really, really cool. Okay, so let's talk about this. What subjects are they covering in this book?
What we do is, and this is a philosophy of education. which is what's so much fun about homeschooling is that each parent decides what is my philosophy of education, what's going to work for me. The way we set this up is this is the only thing that we would do with our kids. So it includes, otherwise then we would do phonics instruction or spelling instruction separate, because that has to be line upon line. We would do math instruction separate, because what you're going to be doing with math needs to be, I mean, you've got to understand numbers, and
exactly.
then you got to go in order. So this is everything else. This is science. It is history. It is geography. And, you know, think of where's the science? Well, we're learning about the animals. We're learning about landforms. We learned about, and in fact, because we're doing the big picture, I had one friend of mine that was looking at it. She goes, "You do the U.S. in 1 week?" And I go, "Yes, we do the U.S. in 1 week." I said, "It's go global. It's not go USA. It's go global." And so we do the USA in 1 week. Well, what do? Well, we get the big picture of the Rocky Mountains, the Mississippi River, the Appalachian Mountains, and then and that actually goes up into Canada and Mexico too, the Great Plains. So we're doing more big picture, but that's science as well as geography. And then when we're doing South America, we do, oh, the animals are just fabulous. Yeah. So it's going to be history, because we're going to be covering, it's going to be cultural geography, like with the Andes Mountains and those. But it's also, I do some geography, like one of the things, and this is, I build curriculum on books sometimes. So for instance, I wanted to do the Mississippi River because that's sort of a defining geographic form. And so I found this beautiful book, and it's a story of Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, and it's called River Boy. And again, it's at most libraries. It's a fairly new book, and it's just this beautiful, beautiful picture book about Mark Twain and his experiences on the river, on the Mississippi River, the mighty Mississippi. And so that's going to be a little bit of history. So do you see there's a little bit of everything? Yes. We also have art. Heather does not like art too much. She's watching. I'm sorry. You really don't like art. She likes movement. She likes big picture movement, but doing crafts and art's not her thing. But I have a daughter who loves arts and crafts. Bethany just loves arts and crafts. And so I try to have an art or craft activity in each week. You don't have to do any curriculum. If you don't want to do the art, don't do the art. You know, but it's there if you want. I also have some art appreciation in there.
Oh, nice.
Which is nice. So when we do Europe, we do a little bit of art appreciation. And a lot of times it's based out of books. You know, like I'm going to go ahead and do one more book. Here's another book. Hannah in the Time of the Tulips. And, you know, Dutch, right?
Yes.
You can imagine we're doing tulips. We have this lovely little girl. It's a beautiful story. It's a story which children love. And even boys will like this. And it's a story about a little girl, and she loves her father, and he is in the tulip, he's growing tulips. And there was a tulip market which crashed. I don't know if you knew this, economics, you learn about crashes. But one of the things, if you look at these illustrations, if they look vaguely familiar, there is an artist that shows up in this book. Mr. Rembrandt shows up in this book. And so now we're not drilling. These are 5 to 8 year olds, but we're exposing them to who is Mr. Rembrandt and his kind of artwork. But it's done very painlessly. It's not done memorizing. It's done just by reading a delightful story with beautiful pictures.
Absolutely.
So there's even some art history. Did I cover everything?
I think so.
Yeah. So there's just sort of a little bit of everything except for your math, your phonics, spelling.
And I think this is becoming a theme. I've mentioned in the last 2 Facebook Lives, but I'll mention it again really fast because it makes sense. We offer IWA testing here.
Yes.
And that's a useful tool that if you don't want to test, it's totally fine. You're not going to ruin your kid. You know, each parent decides what's best.
Yes.
But I do bring it up because there was a family whose child was doing badly in school. He was behind and they're having all these issues. So they pull him out. This was their first year homeschooling. They decided to test him so they can see how they were doing. And they took a very relaxed approach. And they were concerned. They hadn't done any science. When the results came in, the kid did really well, especially in science. And the mom was shocked. She actually thought it wasn't her kid's score. When I explained, you know, that it really was her kid's scores because it's basically with all the checks and balances that we have and that our testing services are impossible to mix them up. So what it was is they were reading a lot of library books. So wonderful literature, kids learn. And they enjoyed homeschooling, they didn't do science, but yet he tested really well. So
one of the things too, and I don't mean to be controversial, but sometimes we think they used to say children should learn how to read in first grade. Then they said children should learn how to read in kindergarten. Now they're telling some parents that your child needs to learn how to read before they go to kindergarten. Well, I don't agree with that. Again, you're homeschooling, you can do whatever you want. There are some kids, I actually have one grandchild that taught himself how to read when he was 4.
Wow.
But I have other grandchildren, and I have one child. And what's funny is that this child that learned how to read before, his mother didn't learn how to read until she was 8. Yeah. 8. She was just not ready to read. And she had some astigmatism, she had some eye issues. So there were reasons why. I didn't hyperventilate about it, but I wanted to give her, and you want to give your children a reason to want to learn how to read. ABCs are great. ABCs are great, that's fine. But reading these kind of wonderful books to your children out loud, and not even if you're using this curriculum, just getting good books to read to your children will want them to read. And that wanting to read,
yes,
especially in the early years, I think is more important than the logistics of ABCs, 1, 2, 3, you know, which is, again, I'm not against it. We want to teach our children how to read, but this is going to make them go, I want to read because I want to read interesting books.
Absolutely. And especially when they're young, you don't want to put them in a box where they actually don't belong. My youngest one did not read well till 4th grade. And I started teaching her in 1st grade, maybe kindergarten, I can't remember, but it just wasn't working out. And she is an excellent reader now. And the funny thing, we were reading a book, it's not Alice Alworth. What is the first name? The missionary to China.
Alice.
Is it Alice?
No,
it's not Alice.
Alward.
Gladys. Thank you. It kind of rhymed, so it was close enough. But anyway, so we were reading that book, and my daughter was 4 years old because I was reading it for my 8-year-old, and I would cry because I can't help it. Sorry, guys. And the little Chinese girl had her feet wrapped, and the missionary lady found her, Gladys, and wrapped them, and she had all the pain with the blood going by, and I was like, I'm just crying as I'm reading this to my kids. So anyway, so we finished reading the section for one day. We got busy. It was time to go. I don't even remember. Anyway, the next day I pulled the book out, and it was time to read it. So the kids got all excited because they were really into the story. Even my 4-year-old. And I started reading. He says, no, Mama, stop. I was like, what? She runs out of the room, and she went to the kitchen, and she picked up a rag, and she says, for you. It was so I could wipe my tears.
Oh.
So I'm never going to forget those little, because she's understanding, Mama's going to get sad on this book. So it was just such a sweet little moment. I was like, I guess I'm going to cry, and they know that.
And you're teaching her empathy because she's going, this is sad, and I'm going to. So there's just so much going on when we read aloud to our kids.
Absolutely, and we don't even know that we're doing it. Yeah. It is amazing. And like I said, she did not read well to almost 4th grade, and then she took off.
Yes.
So, and she also had some eye things. I forgot what the thing was. I took her to the eye doctor, and they keep asking me, does she have ADD? Did she get distracted? Is she doing back in school? And I was like, why is he asking me all these things? And she had the issue where it's hard for the kids to focus, look at close, look up, and their eyes don't focus right away. So it's a lot of work for them. So then because it's so much work, they get tired and they start being disruptive.
Yes.
So I was very thankful that even if I didn't know that's what she had, that we were homeschooling because I could give her the space that she needed and the time. And she got over it.
Yes.
So, it is really amazing. Okay, so what I also like, this is a whole year curriculum, right?
It's 1 year, and it's worked. We did 36 weeks. Though one of the things that I did, can I show a picture?
Oh, totally. Let's show.
One of the things I did, because this is something I needed when I homeschooled, is I needed weeks off.
Like that.
In the year, not just Christmas, but I actually needed a week off. And I have, here's week 12. Usually at the end of a unit, I say, week 12, take a break, or finish the projects that you haven't gotten done because you're behind, which happens to all of us. So, and I remember when I was doing the layout lady, she was like going, "You want a whole page?" And I said, "I want a whole page because I really want them to know you're supposed to take this whole week off." So it's 36 weeks, but I have a few interspersed. Take a week off, catch up, finish reading, finish doing your projects. If you're all caught up, just relax. I mean, you might still want to do your math and your phonics, but at least this stuff, you're going to take a break. And so I have that interspersed in there. And that's one of the things that you can sort of see. This was written by homeschool moms that actually did it. Yep. Something else I did is that we have, it's 4 days a week.
I love that.
Because when I homeschooled, I only homeschooled 4 days a week. You either have a co-op, you need to go out and do grocery shopping, music lessons, whatever. And so I made it 4 days a week. We made it 4 days a week. So that, because that's more reasonable, especially with your kids. Something else that's unique in here is that I have something, what do you all do during Christmas with little kids?
Bake.
The month of December, you bake.
Crafts.
Do you do school? No. We don't do you do school during Christmas?
No.
So what I wanted to do, so what I added in here, let me see if I can find it.
So while you look, oh no, go ahead because
Keep
you
going.
found it.
No, I didn't.
But the other thing that you did, I told a little story when Tammy Lopez saw me and I looked so stressed. So us new homeschooling moms that were never homeschooled, we stress. We don't know. Our only point of reference is the traditional school, whether it was Christian, private, whatever, public. And you have little tidbits. You have like a little line that it has like an experienced homeschool mom giving you a perspective that we don't have because we're very baby homeschoolers. We're just learning.
And an example of that, and I have it a couple times in here, and I was talking to Heather about it, is that I have, when you read certain books, I have conversation starters. And they're questions, some of them are open-ended, many of them are open-ended, questions that you can talk to your child about. And a couple times I say, this is not a test. Don't test your children. Talk to your children about the book. If they don't have an answer, don't worry about it. If they do have an answer and it's not quite what you wanted, if it's not wrong, don't correct them. And I do things like that because I think sometimes we think we're just teaching, we're just didactically teaching. Whereas what we want to do is we want to teach our children to have conversations about books, and we want them to express their opinions. We want them to think through the answer. A lot of times I'm going, stop, let them think. Let them come up with an answer because a lot of times they can't. Now I found out here's Christmas, week 15, and week 15 is like the whole month of December. And I say, I have Christmas around the world. And what I did is I went, and again, I love this. This was so much fun. I went and I collected books about Christmas from all around the world. And so, and they're mostly picture books. A lot of them are with stories. And I actually have them divided up. I have ones on the Nativity. I have the gift givers, which includes St. Nicholas, Stregonona, Santa Claus. If you do Santa Claus, I sort of have that. If you don't do Santa Claus, skip this book. If you do Santa Claus, you might like this book. So with the gift givers, I have the United Kingdom, Germany, and Eastern Europe. And I mean, there's really fun books out there that most of them have the Christmas story of some kind in them. I made a couple exceptions, like I have Letters from Father Christmas with Tolkien, the Scandinavian countries. So it's just great. So you actually, and what I do is I say, this year you're studying Christmas around, you're doing Go Global. So read these stories and go look up the pictures. Go look up where they're at. I have Langston Hughes, who is a Black author that you're probably familiar with, and he's just fabulous. And he wrote just a great story. And what's really interesting is that it's the story of the wise men, but everybody's Black in the picture, which I think is
it's fun.
It's fun. And you know what? We have Christmas stories where they're all white and they're actually all Jews. So, we can have them. So they're all Black, but they're all in like African colors and costumes. It's just a fabulous story. And so I included that in there because you're going to get a sense of this is an African feel on the Christmas story. Yes. Which is so that's a lot of fun. And again, written by homeschoolers because seriously, and there's no crafts in that month because you're cooking, you're doing Christmas. You don't need more crafts. And if you want to go find crafts, you can go find them. They're out there.
They're
but
everywhere.
I just am giving you books so that you can continue the theme of going global.
That is wonderful.
Christmas. And those books are actually not the complete list, but partial lists are on our Cultivated Lives.
Yeah.
Excuse me, cultivatedlearning.org. We have a list on there. So, which because we just thought it was so cool that we wanted to make that available.
That's really nice. And take advantage of those lists because they're in the website and they're free. I mean, obviously your time is valuable too. So, so it's important to also contribute to that. But it's really nice, you know, when you're in a budget to have those wonderful books that you don't need to worry. Yeah. Great. You guys also have videos, right?
Have what?
It's videos, film.
Yes, we do have a few videos. And one of the things that we're doing, that we're adding to the curriculum, because again, the newer moms, which love you guys. No, this is not a criticism. But I want to make it easier. And we didn't really have, I mean, the internet was around when I was homeschooling, but we weren't using it much. And then my daughters have told me that in homeschooling, one of the difficult things with the internet is that you just don't know what you're going to get.
Too many
and
choices.
You can waste looking for something. So we have a resource page that's going to go with the curriculum. And on the resource page, we're going to have links. I'm going to have art tutorials, because have you ever done an art project and you're reading it and you go, I don't get it. So we're going to actually have art tutorials so that it shows you step by step how to do it.
Oh, I would need that.
So you go, oh, that's what okay, I got it. And now we can do it. And some of them you can even watch with your kids. We also have we have videos that I have watch to make sure there's nothing in them. And for instance, maybe there's a great video, but there's something in it that's a little bit problematic. So for instance, Antarctica, when we did Antarctica, there's a great National Geographic film. There's actually an awful National Geographic film that I say, don't get this, and here's why. But then there's this awesome one that's really awesome, except for it talks about the history of some of the early explorers, and they died. And it's a little gruesome. Now, they don't show it. It's just verbal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I sort of say, beware parent. In this video, the first 20 minutes are great, but then about half hour through, you're going to get this little 10-minute segment where it's going to talk about these early explorers and that they died. Now, it's sort of redemptive because at the end, they have their diaries, and they actually were worshiping Jesus and the Lord at the end, right before they died. But some parents wouldn't want their little children to see that.
Their little ones.
And
absolutely.
so I have that all laid out. I do recommend this film, but here's something, so you might want to either preview it or you might just want to skip that over. Exactly. So I try to do that. We don't do foreign language because these are little kids, but we do a little bit of foreign language. So now for those of us in the Southwest, the Spanish that I'm doing is really basic. Hola.
And it's okay because since I'm from Peru, my brain still thinks the V's, I don't pronounce them. That's probably why you didn't understood me, because I was saying like videos like with a B like boy instead of V. I was like, oh, wait a second, this is my accent. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Did you know? Well, I'll tell you that later. But so we have very simple Spanish. We have very simple French. We have some very simple German and Italian. Are those our 4 languages? I think so. Spanish, Italian, German, French. And we realized that if you live in the Southwest, you could probably pronounce most of these words, but for those people that don't, so we actually have some homeschool friends that have come over, and we videotaped one family doing some Spanish with actually a homeschool high schooler, which was really fun, and then a little boy, and they're doing the Spanish words, so you can actually go on and you can go, oh, that's how you say it, and you can actually watch the videos with your kids, and they're like really short, less than 5 minutes, just short little things, but they can get an exposure to the language. And like in Spanish, we add a couple words when we go to Spain, because of course we do Fernando Bull, hello, and so then we play ole. You know, and we do the matador, and we're going to, because again we're going to act that out, because that's what little kids want to do. And so we have these foreign languages. The French, we have a young woman who was homeschooled and is now homeschooling her kids, and she did it, and she and her daughters sing Frere Jacques in the French, which you can listen to it and then you can sing it in English, or but it's just, so we have that little bit of videos, because because it's fun, and then you don't have to go look at it. We also have some
dancing.
So, for instance, when we do Mexico, we do the Mexican hat dance. The Mexican hat dance is it's fun. But are you going to do that with your kids? Probably not. Unless we provide you a link of the music, that all you have to do is go and hit it, and there's the music. And we also provide you a link with how to do the dance. And the dance is very simple. It's just doing this, and you kick out your legs. If you saw it, everybody would do it. And everybody wants to do it with their kids, but they don't want to have to go find the video and find all that stuff. And you can't read it in a book and go, they put out their finger, it's just too complex. So we're going to have video.
That sounds amazing. And I love that you have previewed the videos. I will confess, the internet wasn't, we did have it, but I didn't see that many things. But I did get videos from the library. And I remember jumping off the couch to turn a couple of scenes because I had not previewed it. So it is very nice to be able to preview it.
Yes.
Well, I actually think we're gonna go ahead. Oh, before we end, this is for 5 to 8-year-olds.
Yes.
But 4-year-olds should be able to do it pretty well, correct?
I think so, and definitely little siblings. Siblings, if you've got little toddlers, that's one of the nice things about this kind of this philosophy of education is little ones are going to want to do it with you. Yes. And even the older ones, even if you have older ones, they're going to want to. I remember my 14-year-old grandson grabbed this book because he heard me talking about it, and he read it and loved it. And so you little kids can do it. If you have older kids, you can actually give them, go read this to your sibling. And so it's really good for multi-level families.
Thank you so much for being with us. It was wonderful. I learned so much, and it was really nice to. Not that you really knew me, but it was really nice that I got to connect. Yes. And I am going to get your autograph for my picture.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. And this video, we're going to also be downloaded into a YouTube channel. And thank you, Colene, again. And you guys enjoyed the curriculum. Don't forget to get the free book lists.
Yes.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.